What's up, my dudes? Got us some Stoney MX, bro. So this is made by the team owner of Virock, Sean Smith. Some of you guys might know him. This is his first outdoor track that he's ever made. Okay, so we're talking very beginner, early on track making stages here. I've known this guy forever, by the way. He made my helmet, both multiple team helmets. Best helmet maker in the game, you know what it is. So, yeah, definitely shout out to him. I'll leave a link down below to his YouTube channel if you want to go check him out. I'll put it down in the comments too. But, yeah, so this is his first motocross track here. Just want to kind of come in here and, you know, talk about a few things that could be improved upon. It's really cool to see, like, when people are first getting into the track making on this game. It's just such a fun process learning how to do that because it's just such a sandbox, you know. You can do anything you want to do. A lot of people don't realize the possibilities of the track editor in MX Simulator. And with somebody like me that's made, you know, 70 plus full-blown custom tracks in this game, I got a pretty good idea on what's going on here. You know what I'm saying, dog? So I don't know what I did right there. Had a little mistake. Okay. So yeah, but it's a process, you know. It's a process learning the track making of this game. There's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different aspects going on. You know, you got to learn the like coding side of it, how to get objects in there, how to get decals in there, how to get like all that kind of stuff in there, right? You got to figure out how to make everything where it'll actually show up, right? You know, there's a lot of little intricacies to it. But the fun part, really, I think, is making the track. That's like the funnest part of it when you can actually go in there and start building the terrain and trying out different ways you can build ruts and stuff like that. So it's just like anything, you know. It just takes time to learn all the little bull crap that you got to learn with it. Like just for instance, you know, naming a certain sequence file perfectly to the exact name of the coding of the other thing over here to get it to where it'll show up right. And if you don't, it might still show up for you if you have a different track, so it's really confusing. You know, there's all these other little things to track making in this game, like tough block collision. You gotta be real careful with certain things like that. You gotta make sure every file is in the exact right spot, named perfectly. You know, there's a couple little different things, but once you start getting that stuff down, man, it gets to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to this track, one of the first couple of things I noticed with it is, and this is something you'll just learn over time, but it's like some of these corners and like how fast you're coming into some of these sections, definitely just, you can tell it's more of like a beginner style dude that made it, right? You know, it takes a lot of testing, right? It takes a lot of time right on the track to feel if something is like you're coming into a section too quick for what it's worth, or the corner doesn't really flow quite as properly as it probably should. You know, you kind of learn like a couple little different things like that. So yeah, I'll definitely say it's a unique kind of vibe going on here, right? You got like he's got that same sort of tree right there that's kind of got the three trees coming up in one statue, I think it is. So it's cool when you're like in the middle of it. You feel like the way he's kind of curved up some of these outside hills and stuff, when you're in the middle of the track, kind of feels like you're in a little fairy tale land, right? You know, you can't really see anymore. All you're seeing is like trees, and you're like in the woods, right? So it's pretty cool little vibe that puts off there. But yeah, I could definitely tell there's a slight little lack of like flow around the whole track. There's definitely kind of a lot of you're having to slow down and stop it, like it just kind of a little bit weird, you know, just the way the terrain over the whole caboodle. There's quite a few cool sections, cool little jump right here, wheelie. But yeah, it's just, and you know, I'm not gonna sit here and like dog on a dude's first track or anything like that, because this is just to be expected. Everybody has to go through making multiple tracks before you even really start like learning that what feels natural, you know, as far as corner flow and the way the rut flows with the corner and all these other little things, you know, that's kind of, you just kind of get that over time of you gotta make a lot of tracks That's one of the best advice I can give. You got to get in there and do it. That goes with anything. Music making, anything, dog. You've got to do it. That's the only way you can learn these little tricks of the trade, little intricate things that I'm talking about here. That's the only way you can learn any of that stuff is by going in there and doing it a lot. Repetition. Don't be so worried about what some idiot on the forum is going to say about your track, right? Don't worry about all that BS. Just get in there and start making tracks. Get in there and start doing it, right? And that's what allows you to start really perfecting the terrain design and how you're flowing the rut through the corner. And depending on how fast you are in the game, I know you're a pro, Sean, but depending on how fast you are, the better you can sort of gauge like what's too difficult for what, or if you're not even really a pro at this game, it's going to be a little more difficult to really like make a track to a certain level because you're not even to that level, right? So it just kind of all depends on what level you're at in the game and certain stuff like that. But yeah, so one little thing he's kind of got a little bit going on here is, that's cool how you can jump that all the way down to there. But one little thing I've noticed, and this is something that I've always talked about, but he doesn't really have his actual on track, like where it goes from the grass to the dirt right here. It's not lowered any. It's just like the same terrain. Dirt to grass, grass to dirt. It's the same terrain level. And I'm not saying you have to do what I'm about to tell you to do, but what I am saying is it drastically makes the on-track feel more like a real on-track. So, and it's not like you got to do a lot. Just a little bit. And this is one of the biggest things that most beginner track makers do in this game. They just kind of start like painting down their decal without really digging the on-track down into the ground. If you've ever looked at a real on-track in real life, the on-track is always a little bit more dug down in the ground than the off-track, because, you're going in there disking up the track. It's just going to be a little bit lower typically than your off-track. And what that does is you can really create where you can really see the off-track and the on-track, right? Versus just this, like it just sort of melds into one, right? This is a very common beginner track maker problem right here. They get he's lowered it a little right here, it looks, but that just looks like part of the hill over here. Let me see if I can kind of do this. The trees are a little bit in my way, but let me see. Are these statues? Yeah, I won't worry about that. Let's see. I just want to kind of do this real quick here. And I've showed you boys this a few times, but let's just try a little lowering it by one right here, right? We'll kind of snake this around. I just want to kind of show you the difference that it can create when you, of course, I don't know if I'm getting this exact right here because the trees are sort of cutting off my view, but we'll see. I'll try to lower this and then I'll try to show you what this looks like in comparison. And you can do all different variations of this. You can lower it all different ways that you want to lower it. But let me just kind of show you what I'm talking about here. I'll smooth that part out. It got a little weird right there. Okay, so if you didn't want to like smooth off your actual on track, you would just come in here and kind of catch the borders of it, right? Kind of smooth her down a little bit right here on the borders so you're not getting that weird. Of course, you'd go all the way around the track. I'm just showing a quick example here, what I'm talking about. Quick little example. Okay, not doing anything permanent here or anything like that. Just showing a quick little example. It'd be cool to come in here and do like a little series of like taking somebody's beginner track that they've made and then kind of trying to like work on it and fix it up as much as I can. That'd be a cool video idea. So as you can see, that's a little extreme, right? So then you would come in here and fix it some, right? So do something along the lines of like that. You know what I'm saying? Let me get in a different view so I can show you what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know of a real life track, never been to one where the on track and the off track is the exact same height of terrain. That's never That's never the case, really, in real life. Your on-track is always dug down from the off-track, whether it be grass or a rock mountain or whatever it is you got out here. It's always going to be dug down a little bit, right? Even if it's just slight, even if you do it like 0.5 dug down on the whole on-track, it's still going to make it look better, still. You know? So that's just a little tip. Just a little something. I do that on pretty much every track that I make now. Like my track building process is, I'll sort of get my layout down, right? I'll kind of do like what he's done here, but minus the jumps and the roughness and the terrain and all that, and just get my layout, you know, on a perfectly flat surface, right? And I'll lay my decals out on that layout, right? So I've got the track laid out, and then the first thing I do is I go in there and lower right on the on track over the whole layout of the track. I'll lower it either 0.5 or 1 or whatever, and then kind of get that smoothed out to where it looks natural. Then I start going in there and building my jumps, start going there and building my hills. It's not going to affect, because even if you do that, like even if you go in there and lower the on track at the beginning, you can do any hill you want, and you're still going to get the on track lowered no matter if you're going uphill, downhill, hitting a jump, it doesn't matter. For instance, like if he would have done that before he ever raised this terrain right here by this hill, let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. If I can find it on this, it should be a little turned around here. So it's like right before you come back on the start straight. I think it's right here. Let me see. Hope it's right here. See if I can get this a little bit going here. Yeah, right here. Okay, so let me just show you what I'm talking about. Smooth the sides down just a little bit. Just about like that. And then you're getting a little bit more of this kind of a look, right? No matter if you're going up a hill, down a hill. I need to smooth it a little more, actually. You just kind of got to go until it starts looking like a natural, you know, from on track to off track, and then that's what kind of helps you out. The tough blocks are really killing the vibe. The hay bales are really killing the vibe here because they're going to float like that. So if you do that, you're going to have to go back in there in your tough blocks. Unless you save, leave the game, and come back, then they'll come down to the ground. But if not, if you're wanting to get like a look of what you're looking at, you need to at least touch them one time and they will come back to the ground. They won't be in that weird floating state, right? So if you're ever making a track, that's just a little tip. If you're getting some floating effects from changing the terrain beside a statue, you just got to come in here and touch it and it'll come back to the ground for you real quick. So now you can see the tough blocks are on the ground, right? And what I would do probably in that occasion is then move the tough blocks a little further out since you have the on-track dug down. These are all just, you know, the little elements, little essences of things that I've learned over the years. But I mean, as far as like the on-track and the jumps and the roughness and the ruts and all that, yeah, it is lacking more of that like professional flow or whatever it is you want to call it. Like this section's super bizarre right in here, just by the way he built those rollers so close together and so tight in that little corner like that. There are a couple of weird janky sections, but I've definitely seen worse. I've definitely seen way more boring on tracks with no jumps, no roughness, no ruts. At least this track has a little bit of what you think of as would be on a motocross track. Hell, RF don't even put roughness and ruts anymore. Shit. But, you know, either way, like, you know, at least it has that. At least it has some kind of a character. It's not just perfectly flat, you know, basic jumps. Like, at least it has something. There is a few sections on here. Like, you got to be pretty hossing on the 450. Like this jump right here, you can jump this about as far as you want to jump it. So, you know, it's good to have those couple little skill gappy jumps like that can really separate the, you know, the 450 Pro dudes from the other guys in the game. Like, you can really holding it wide, fifth tap, hitting a jump to jump. This jump right here in particular is another section where you can jump a little further than that landing, right? So you can kind of separate yourself a little bit there. This section right here is a little weird. You're just coming in super hot, fifth tapped into a like single roller, but you're like jumping right into the berm. So I don't know if that was like accidental or he just kind of had to fit it all in right there, but that definitely seems a little bizarre. I think the better bet there would have been either making another little jump right here to where you could jump up over that double and land down in the corner, and or, you know, making this like roller right here closer to the ground. For instance, let me just do this real quick. Let's get it like, let me just do a gradient. J's, killing myself here. Let's do a gradient. So you just want to knock down that right there, right? So you're more like smooth into that corner. Linear paint. Just like a little more smooth into the corner. Just doing this really quick, guys. Just really quick putting that together. So you've got more of like that, right? Obviously, I'm like not even... This track is so hard to see the on track with these trees. But, you know, like something like this would have been a little bit better flow-wise and everything like that, where it just sends you down in the corner. You could have carried that speed through. So that's just another little, you know, little example of you never want like a big single right before a corner. You know, a lot of people kind of get into the, I mean, you can do it. I'm not saying you can't. You can do anything, right? You can make anything. I just mean as far as for a flow sense, like you're never going to really see a real life track that has that kind of a section, you know, and if that's what you're going for, that's what you're going for. It seems more, you know, to me, I'm trying to take in everything that what it seems like you're trying to do at the track. Seems like you're trying to make somewhat more of a realistic design, maybe not like full-blown realistic, but somewhat in the realm of realistic, right? So that's why I'm even sort of using these parameters of this wouldn't be a thing in real life, or that wouldn't really be like that on a real life track or whatever. That's why I'm even thinking like that. Like if you want to go there and make a fantasy track with a 300-foot tall wall to a corner, do whatever you want to do, right? If you want to go there and make a crazy space track, side jump, whatever that would never be in real life, that's cool. But I mean, if you're trying to make a more real design track, I'm just explaining, you know, to get more flow out of the track, you would need to either make that into a double down the corner or smooth that single more right before the corner. So, but either way, traction's not bad. It's definitely a rideable track. But yeah, you'll just learn like kind of which ruts to make a little bigger, where to put the roughness. The roughness can seem a little bit, that's that tree I put in the middle of the track. The roughness can seem a little bit inconsistent throughout the track, you know. Typically, most real life tracks are going to have somewhat of the same style of roughness throughout the whole track. So, you know, you want to kind of keep that. You don't want to have like if you're going to start doing roughness on a track, you don't want to have like 4 sections in a row that are pretty smooth and then come over here and have like big braking bumps, right? You usually wouldn't see that in real life. It would be more of a consistent throughout the whole track, would either have that certain kind of braking bumps or more on the smooth side or whatever, right? So just like kind of the way you S some of these corners right here, they're pretty tight, dog. I mean, if you don't know the layout of this track, you're going to be flying off this track quite a few times right here. Like, for instance, in this section, I would have... If you were going to put all these rollers in this corner like this, I would have just swung that a little bit wider so it didn't feel so like abrupt and sharp and janky right here, right? I would have just swung that out just a little bit wider so it gave you a little more room. That's one thing I'm noticing. It's like your sections up to the corner, your corners are too tight for the kind of section you have before it, right? And then it's kind of like, whoa, that's a tight corner all of a sudden. Or if you wanted to have this tight of a corner, I would have just took one of those rollers out, right? Or something to where it didn't feel so bizarre riding on that part of the track, right? So just a couple of nitpicky things, but other than that, I mean, and obviously you're going to want to do more decal work than just off-track grass and on-track dirt, literally 2 decals on the whole track. So obviously you would want to put more in. And that's just something you do over time. Everybody's first track has probably 1 or 2 decals on it, right? So I'm not like dogging you for it or anything, but obviously over time you'd want to put different types of trees together, some sort of a grass, or, you know, there's not really any grass or bush or anything like that. So it's like you're on this perfectly mowed down golf course with trees on it or something, right? So, but yeah. It's cool, though. I mean, it's cool, man. It's cool to see people making tracks. It's just a learning process, you know? It's just one of those things you got to figure out over time. And once you do, see, that's a pretty skill gappy 450 line right there. Going up the inside and still being able to hook this plumb to where that tree is in the middle that I put, right? He's smart enough to give you like a good enough of a landing far enough out on some of these bigger jumps to where it didn't just like kill the complete possibility of being able to hit a bigger line. A lot of beginners do that because they're not super fast in the game, and they will like not even give you the opportunity to be able to separate yourself on a big jump because they'll make it where you'll just pop off if you try to jump something too big or whatever the case may be, right? So, but either way, I do like this tree object itself. It helps your case that this tree is so like, where it's 3 trees in one tree, and depending on how you rotate it, it's going to kind of change the look of it. That's definitely helping the look here. Like, for instance, here, you know, it's making that tree almost seem like a completely different tree by the way you've got it rotated, where it's one of them's going up the hill, right? But typically, for the most part, the standard is like at least 2 or 3 different kind of trees on a track, and at least, you know, 4 or 5 different decals on a track, right? Those are more of like the standard, you would call it. You know, if you're wanting to kind of compare to like, sometimes JGMX don't even put more than 1 or 2 trees on a track, and sometimes you can make it work, but if you're really trying to go for more of that filled out off track, right, you would want to at least have 3 or 4 different kind of trees, at least have 4, 5, 6 different decals, you know, multiple different off-track decals, 2 or 3 different on-track blended together decals, so it's kind of giving you that variation look to it. But for a first motocross track, not terrible at all, dog. You got multiple lines in some of these corners, which is great. It's always a plus. But yeah, just a few of these sections, I think if you would have just like sweep some of your corners a little bit further out, it wouldn't have made it seem so like, bam, slam on your brakes, abrupt, jank, turn. You know what I mean? It would have made it have a little more flow to the whole track if you'd have done that on some of these sections. But yeah, either way, give this puppy like a, where would I put this? You know, and I just have to rate it like normal, no matter if it's your first track or not your first track. I can't just be like, oh, well, this is 10 out of 10 because it's dude's first track, right? I can't be like that. It's somewhere around that, like, you know, I would call this like anywhere from a 4 to a 6, right? Somewhere right around that mid-range, right around that average MX Simulator track range. Because there's a lot of tracks in this game that are even more basic than this. There's a lot of tracks, they've got the stock skybox, they've got, you know, at least this on-track is actually rideable. There's a lot of tracks, the on-track's just not even, you can't even hardly ride, like it's not even fun at all. And what I mean by that is like people go in there and just make super smooth, flat, no decals. You know, he's got something here. So I'm at least going to give him a 5 out of 10 for this right here for sure. This is where I would say this track is right around that, right in the middle, right around that average point. Some people would consider this more probably like a 3 or a 4, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 5. That's where I'm going to put it because it does have some on-track elements that a lot of tracks don't have. It does have decals around the whole track. You know, he's got some basis of some things here going, so not terrible. So either way, that's where I'm at on it. Appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.